Hi, I'm Michael Johnston. I'm the Software Portfolio Product Manager for Fluke and the product owner for our calibration software. And today I'm going to walk through how to launch and run a procedure from MET-Team in METCAL. So the first thing I'm going to show is launching METCAL from a work order in MET-Team. The way that METCAL is integrated with the rest of the software through MET-Team, and the way that we'll continue to do that moving forward in Cal Studio is really a key part of what makes using METCAL what it is, having that be a core part of the workflow. So I've already got MET-Team open, I've got my work order open, and you can see here in my procedure used field, I have a procedure already selected, and that's based on the type of instrument that I have. I've set that up ahead of time just for this video. So when I click the Add Results button, that's going to launch METCAL for me directly from the work order. It's going to pre-select the asset, pre-select the procedure that's set up there, and we can see when this launches and starts up, it's going to automatically start running that procedure. So what's great about that is we can pre-configure our different types of instruments and match them to a procedure that we've already reviewed and approved, and have that be a seamless process for technicians where they're not having to look around and select a procedure. So right now this is launching what's called a sections procedure, which allows us to run all or part of a procedure that we are running. That's great for if we have technicians who go out into the field and take standards with them. So if they took a standard that I need for a part of this calibration, but there's other parts that I can still run with what's in the lab, I can run just that portion I want to and then run the rest of it later. For right now, I'm going to run this whole procedure. This is a demonstration procedure to show how METCAL works and what the user interface looks like. You'll see up at the top right here, I'm in simulation mode, which means I'm not going to actually talk to any instruments or control any instruments, but that's a big part of what METCAL does is it controls your reference devices. It can talk to your devices under test when they have a remote interface. And so right now it's telling me that the standard it's going to look for is my 5080 calibrator, which isn't really here in the room with us because we're simulating that. So when I go through there, it's going to set up that results record in the database. Now it's going to prompt me for some information, right? This is a customizable prompt. I can typically have my temperature and humidity data being prompted here, so I can store that as a part of my calibration record. You can see there's other fields I can add to this, fully customizable. Really, most of the fields that are available in MET-Team can be implemented on this same screen. You can see that, hear that beep. So that beep allows us to know when there's something that's needing my attention within METCAL. And so here we've got a nice picture that we're displaying, right? We can show connection information or the way to complete a test. And that allows us to have that visually. And now here we're asking a question based on that picture, right? Are all of the segments of my display illuminated for my display test? And I can say yes or no, and that's going to generate a pass-fail condition based on that question. So here when I say yes, it's going to show this little green checkbox here for the display test, where that test passed because of my yes answer. So as we come through here, it's going to give me instructions for how to connect my standard to my DUT. And as I move forward, right, selecting different voltage ranges, this is simulating calibrating a Fluke 77 handheld. So you've got your dial, you're changing that, we're making connections. For typical device nerd tests that doesn't have a remote interface, as we're running a METCAL procedure, we're typing in the value straight from the screen, right? So it will set up the calibrator, and that signal will be attached to the device, and then we will enter that here. For this simulation, we are just pre-populating this data for us to kind of show the different conditions that can happen. So all of these passing tests are showing up here as it's evaluating the measured value against the nominal with the spec built around it. METCAL is a really powerful tool, has a lot of functionality. I often joke that I'm really close to METCAL because we were born in the same year. So METCAL has been around for over 30 years, and it continues to be one of the most powerful calibration softwares on the market. And the reason for that is the flexibility. I can run any kind of procedure. Right now I'm showing an electronic procedure, but I have written procedures for physical and dimensional devices. I wrote a procedure for doing pipettes, even not using any Fluke equipment. And that's one of the biggest things about METCAL is that it's very flexible and allows you to do a lot of different things and not rely just on what we can offer at Fluke for hardware. So here we're showing a fail condition, right? We've got this test point that has failed. We're showing what the error that was measured is, what the tolerance was there. You can see that we're also showing the uncertainty here. And in the background of all of these tests, we are calculating the measurement uncertainty, which is another really powerful thing about MetCal, is that we are calculating the measurement uncertainty when it's configured correctly on every single test point. And that's just a built-in functionality that it's going to do every time. So as we advance through here, I know that this is going to fail if I repeat this, but I could, right? Maybe I have a connection incorrect and I want to make that connection again. Maybe I need to shift things a little bit so they work properly. I could repeat this test. I can either continue to retain that initial measured value, or I can replace it depending on how I approach that. But ultimately, we're going to move forward here with the demo and continue through this test procedure. So you can see we're continuing through some of these, and here's another type of evaluation we can do, which is, again, a question. So before we had the question with the picture, now we're just asking a question, right? This would be the continuity test that we're doing here in the diode mode. And if the beeper is on, that means that some condition has been met, and so we're checking to see if the beeper is on and off under those conditions. So we can answer those questions yes and no, and that allows us to, again, do that pass-fail condition. Lots of different types of evaluations we can do here. So as we continue through some of these other sections of the procedure, it's making those same types of setups, right? Setting up the calibrator to output those values. And here in the procedure code, we can display different information to the user to show them what test is happening, what section of the procedure they're doing. And you can see here, it's going to tell us what value we are outputting from our reference device when we use instruments like a Fluke Calibrator. We're not going to see the safety symbol in this because we're in simulation mode. Here we can have a lot of different functionality around selection of different items, right? So we can have a list of all the things that we want them to be able to choose from, and they can make a selection from that list, and then we can branch our procedure and do different things based on those selections. We also have indeterminate conditions when we're guard banding. So the 4 tests here that you see at the bottom, right? We have a pass indeterminate result, a fail indeterminate, and a failure. And you can see over on the left here, this is a fairly recent addition where we're actually tracking the count of each type of test pass-fail result. And that's showing the whole time. And as we get to the end of this procedure, you can actually filter the list of your results by those different conditions to get down to just the piece that you want to look at. So here we finished the procedure. Similar to the pre-prompt at the beginning, we now have a post-prompt. I'm going to put in some notes here, and I can choose my data condition, right? So we had some failures, so we're going to say that this was as found data, and we'll save that. Now it's going to write that to the database. Now, MetCal can be run in a couple of different configurations. One is through MetTeam, which is what we're using here, and the other is through MetConnect. So when we are integrated with MetTeam like we are here, we're writing this data to the database, and you can see here in the results section of this same work order we started from, which opens up at the end, are all of those MetCal results right there available for us. And when we generate a certificate from this work order, that's going to automatically populate that. And we'll do that from here. I'll do that back from the browser when we get done with this. But all of this data, as well as the standard that was used, that's the 5080 that I have configured on my workstation. So it simulated that that was being used. It also pulled in from those prompt files, the temperature and humidity that I listed earlier, as well as my data condition that I chose. So all of that comes in automatically from the end of that run. Similarly, in MetConnect, we can have, without all of the overhead of MetTeam and tracking all of the assets there, if you have another system, you can integrate MetConnect with that, and we can still run those MetCal procedures and get this results data through an API, through a PDF datasheet output that then puts that data into your other system. So I'm going to close this work order. It's going to automatically close MetCal because I launched it from that work order. Now if I go back in MetTeam and find that work order, I'm just going to show we're still in a received state, so we're not done with this work yet. But for now, I'm going to look at a preview of what the certificate would look like, and we'll see that all of that MetCal data was added to that work order results. So down here is all that same data that we just looked at. And we have on this template, the TSR, but we could update this template to include the uncertainty or any number of other columns from the data. And that allows us to have this integrated with our certificate, which is, again, a big part of this, is having that data as a core part of that record. So as we look forward to the future and we talk about Cal Studio, right, this same type of functionality will exist in Cal Studio, and we will integrate MetCal so that existing MetCal procedures that you've been building and using for 3 decades plus will continue to work, they'll continue to be available, and we'll have that same level of integration with Cal Studio as well that we do with MetTeam. Thanks for watching, and for more information on this or other topics, check out fluke.com.